What's up idols, it's CC Lesson 3. Welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for clicking on this video. Now, if you've watched my videos before, you know this is really far from what I normally do here on my channel. But I found this story so interesting that I just had to share it with y'all because the details are crazy. This is one of South Korea's most disturbing and bizarre disappearances. I've done a lot of traveling and I even lived in South Korea for a bit. Don't get me wrong, South Korea is still one of the safest countries I've ever been to. But that doesn't mean that bad things don't happen to people there, especially women. South Korea has a long-standing stalking issue and a particular problem handling assault cases in South Korea against women and children, both of which are unfortunately relevant to this case. I'm talking about the disappearance of Yoon Hee. She was 28 years old at the time and a college student. Her father said, "I can't find my daughter due to poor police investigation." But let's go back and see how we got here. Let's see what happened leading up to her disappearance. Yoon Hee was born in Namyangju in the Gyeonggi-do province in South Korea. She originally studied statistics and art at Ewha University in Seoul, but she didn't feel this was the right career path for her. She eventually decided to switch and study her true passion, so she switched to become a vet. She had a passion for zoology and had always loved animals, and this is what truly made her happy. So she transferred to Jeonbuk National University College of Veterinary Medicine in 2003. This made her happy even though the work was tough. But a few things happened to her right before her disappearance and something was definitely not right. People around her, such as classmates and friends, noticed she seemed a bit down and depressed more than usual in the days before she disappeared. One unfortunate incident we do know occurred before she vanished was when she encountered a thief. On June 2nd, 4 days before she went missing, while walking back from tutoring her professor's kids to earn some extra money, a motorcycle thief stole her purse, which had her wallet, cell phone, ID, and a notebook in it. She screamed that she had been robbed and two men in a van nearby heard her. They attempted to follow the motorcycle to get back the stolen items, but unfortunately, the motorcycle went down an alley where the van couldn't follow and they lost the thief. We'll have to come back to this incident a little bit later though. This brings us to the night of her disappearance on June 5th, 2006. After a tough exam, Yoon Hee along with other students and professors met at a karaoke bar in Dokjin, which happened to be very close to where she lived alone in her studio apartment, less than 2 kilometers away, less than a mile away. Her friends had to convince her to go out though because she had been down and depressed lately. While out at this bar, she was actually starting to have fun at karaoke. When they went to a second bar, Yoon Hee came from the bathroom looking very uncomfortable and a little scared. It was about 2:30 in the morning at that point on June 6th when she decided to abruptly leave her friends, classmates, and professors without saying goodbye to them. But she had a classmate, a male student only known as Kim, and he noticed she was off in a hurry. They were pretty close friends, so he went to go and check on her. When he asked her why she was leaving, all she said was someone followed her in the bathroom, but she didn't say anything else. So he offered to escort her home and carry her backpack since it was nearby. Having been robbed just 4 days prior, she agreed. But this is when things continued to get weird. On the walk to her apartment, they arrived in a dark alley near her studio, and instead of asking him to walk her down the dark alley, she said this was close enough, she's fine from here, and she sent him away. If this is true, wouldn't it be odd that someone who was just robbed wouldn't want to be escorted directly to her front door? It makes you wonder if this is actually what happened or if she didn't feel comfortable with him coming to her front door. Surely there's a reason for that. In any case, they parted here according to Kim. And he said he stayed and waited until he saw a light come on from inside her apartment. And once he did, he figured she arrived home safely and that he could now go. This is the last time Yoon Hee was ever seen. Now there is evidence indicating that she did indeed make it successfully and safely inside her apartment. That evidence came in the form of her internet search history. She left the bar at 2:30 a.m. and at 2:58 a.m. she searched the words 112, which is Korea's emergency line for police like 911 in the States or 999 in the UK. Yoon Hee also searched for about 3 minutes, Sorchuhang, which was a typo for and her computer was turned off at 4:21 a.m. We definitely have to come back to this because this is very important to the investigation later. The next day, no one heard from her, but they didn't find it suspicious because 1, as a 4th year student, she only had 1 class a day. 2, it wasn't uncommon for students preparing for final exams to study at home instead, even though she never missed class. And 3, June 6th in South Korea is Hyunchungil, or Memorial Day. But on June 7th, when she still wasn't seen or heard from, this started to make people worry. This led to Kim going to her apartment to check on her. When he arrived to her apartment, he got nothing. He only heard her dogs barking on the other side of the door. So he thought she might be asleep or maybe she had stepped out. But the next day, on June 8th, when she still hadn't been seen or heard from, this is when people close to her really started to worry, because it was out of the ordinary for her to miss one day, let alone 3 consecutive days of class. So Kim, her friend Minji, and 2 other classmates known as A and B went to her apartment to check on her. They couldn't call after all because she had just had her phone stolen. At her apartment again, they only heard dogs barking, no sign of Yoon Hee. They thought maybe she went home to Namyangju. But when they called her parents and older sister, they also hadn't heard from her or seen her in days. And this is what led to them finally calling the police. But I also found a source that says one of her friends went to a studio apartment across the street to try to look inside her apartment and noticed her window was open and her apartment looked messy and trashed. Shoes and other items just scattered. This apartment is yet another thing we have to come back to later because it is very suspicious. When the police arrived after hearing the situation, they broke the digital lock to gain entry. Once they got inside, they realized the dogs hadn't eaten for days. There was dog poop and urine everywhere. They know Yoon Hee loved her dogs and animals and would never leave them in such a state. It appears the dogs trashed the place looking for food. But it is also worth noting there was a dried and twisted bouquet of flowers hung out of reach of the dogs that somehow fell on the floor from its high position. This led to suspicion that maybe she was attacked by someone or maybe someone else was present in her apartment. Another piece of evidence that indicates she did indeed make it home was her backpack, the same one she had at the bar, the same one Kim saw her with when he walked her back. It was on the floor inside her apartment. But again, something is off because inside her backpack, there was anesthetics for animals and syringes with signs they'd recently been used. You can't have these without permission, even as a vet student. But people figured it wasn't too suspicious at the time. Maybe she accidentally brought it home with her after all. Frustratingly, the police saw all of this and suspected no foul play. They suggested she needed a break and wanted to get away and relax, based on the fact that there was no sign of forced entry and nothing valuable appeared to be missing. Well, nothing valuable aside from a whole human woman missing, I guess. Unable to accept that she simply chose to go on vacation without contacting anyone and leaving her dogs without food or water, 2 of her friends, Minji and B, went to the police station to file a missing person report. So while Minji and B were away at the police station, Kim and A decided to stay in her apartment and wait for her parents to come because they were on their way from Namyangju to help find their missing daughter. They also wanted to stay with the dogs because at this point they probably hadn't been with anyone for days. But unfortunately, this is when yet another blunder happens, this time by her friends. Initially, according to one of her friends who stayed behind, we don't know if it was Kim or A, but they said they were told by the police, quote, "She probably went somewhere for a while. Her parents will be coming down soon, so don't worry and just clean." The police didn't do anything to preserve the crime scene, and the friends said they were worried her parents would see her apartment in such a state, and that's bad. Apparently, the cops suggested they clean though, that was just a rumor. But either way, they cleaned her apartment. Cleaned the crime scene, which means they may have destroyed DNA, fingerprints, hair, and other potential evidence that could have been left at the scene. Also, Yoon Hee's older sister arrived first, before her parents, and she decided to help them clean. She found a cigarette butt, but threw it away because she didn't want their parents knowing she smokes. But this may not have been Yoon Hee's cigarette butt. It could have belonged to whoever attacked her, but unfortunately, we'll never know. Obviously, now they realize it was a huge mistake to clean up, but they didn't want to embarrass her in front of her parents. It was the job of the police to preserve the crime scene and they failed, but her sister and friends are remorseful about it to this day. Though the police said nothing was missing, when her parents arrived, they noticed a hammer and a coffee table were missing. The day before she disappeared, she had a friend over who definitely recalls seeing that coffee table. She used this table as a desk, she used the table to eat on, she used this table for everything. One of the legs came loose and she had a friend come over to fix it, instead of just throwing it out and getting a new one, indicating that she really liked the table and had no plans or reasons to throw it out. Interestingly, the table was found a few days later on June 13th. Her father was looking around the area surrounding her apartment for clues and found it with other discarded furniture, but all of the legs were removed. Mr. S is the name given to the friend who tightened the legs for her. Mr. S is also one of the 4 friends who came to check on Yoon Hee after they realized she was missing. Through research, I tried to find if he's A or B. Personally, I'm just going to assume that B went to the police station with Minji because there's speculation and rumor that Kim and Mr. S didn't get along because there was a bit of jealousy around Yoon Hee, a bit of a love triangle. So to think of them staying behind to clean her apartment together just seems unlikely. And unfortunately, Mr. S didn't attend the get-together at the bar the night she went missing. So when he fixed her table, this was the last time he would ever see her. One popular theory believes Kim wanted to clean so he could help destroy his own evidence he may have left in her apartment. This theory also believes Kim removed the legs of the table after he found out Mr. S is the friend who fixed it for her, out of jealousy. But others believe a homeless person took the legs to make some money, because in 2013, a junk shop owner said the iron legs are accepted but not the plywood tabletop. It is also possible that she did indeed just change her mind and decide to throw out the table, though Mr. S finds that very unlikely because she really seemed to love it when he was fixing it for her. The other thing that was missing from her apartment was a hammer, and this hammer her dad noticed in particular because he insisted she keeps it. For her own DIY purposes, being a young woman living alone, you never know when you need a hammer. Her father is convinced this hammer was used when his daughter was abducted or murdered. He believes they took the weapon with them so no one else would find it. Though the table was found, the hammer was never seen again. Several more days would go by before the police finally put together an investigation team on June 10th because still, no one had seen or heard from her yet. Because the apartment was so thoroughly clean though, there was no blood, no DNA, no hair, or fingerprints left at the scene. The walls were thin, so the police hoped maybe neighbors heard something. Most said they heard nothing, but a few completely declined to cooperate with police. One neighbor though, a woman, said a few days before Yoon Hee went missing, she was followed to her apartment by a creepy guy. Instead of going in her apartment, because she feared he might try to force himself inside with her, she decided to confront him and ask what he wanted or if he needed anything, and luckily this scared him off. If unrelated, that just goes to show the problem facing young women in South Korea. Then her friends told her about that studio apartment we talked about earlier, how it has a clear view into Yoon Hee's apartment. The studio, when they visited, was empty and no one was officially living there, but there were used tissues and empty cigarette packs left behind. Again though, unfortunately, no DNA could be traced off of these items. So the case seemed to be going nowhere. There were no leads, no breakthroughs, no idea at all what happened to Yoon Hee. Then, something odd was found online when they checked her search history. Remember how her computer was shut off at 4:21 the day she disappeared? Her past computer log shows that she always left her computer running. She never shut it down. And because of her search history, police believe she was assaulted recently and was finding out how to report it, especially since her phone was stolen. Authorities also discovered Yoon Hee was talking to someone on Naeton. But after she went missing, someone had deleted those chats and that whole conversation from her computer. Whoever she was talking to is likely the suspect or knows something. Then, on June 10th, someone accessed a music site with Yoon Hee's internet account information and checked her emails. This was done at a hotel in Yeouido. When police reviewed CCTV footage, they didn't find her and couldn't find anyone who had logged in using her information. No one seemed suspicious and no one stood out. Was someone trying to give the impression that she was alive and well, checking her emails and a music site? The last lead was her notebook, the same notebook that was stolen with her handbag, ID, wallet, and phone. This notebook was used by Yoon Hee to record phone numbers and other personal information on it. This notebook was suddenly found at Jeonbuk University where she studied, indicating that the person responsible for her abduction, her disappearance, the person who robbed her, has ties to the same university she goes to. There really haven't been any new leads since, so let's get into the suspects. 1. Some people theorize the same people who robbed her days before she went missing are also behind her disappearance. They have her personal information. They know she can't call for help either. Also, one of the two men in the van who helped her chase down the thieves was briefly a suspect because he had addiction. And the fact that her info was used to log online at a hotel in Yeouido, many people think it was the motorcycle thief. Who else would have such information? 2. One of the most compelling suspects is one of Yoon Hee's professors, only known now as Mr. Moon. He was with them at the bar when everyone had gathered. This is also the same professor whose children Yoon Hee tutored the night she was robbed. That night, while they were at karaoke and drinking at a bar, her classmates reported that Mr. Moon was being inappropriate to Yoon Hee, touching her and making unwanted advances and flirting. They also believe he's the one who followed her into the bathroom, which led to her leaving and searching harassment online when she got home. Also that night, classmates noticed Mr. Moon tried to sit next to Yoon Hee, but she kept asking people to switch seats with her to avoid sitting next to him. Mr. Moon had an alibi, but his alibi kept changing, which was even more suspicious. He claimed he left the party early before anyone else and got home around 2 a.m. But witnesses there said he didn't leave until after Yoon Hee left, which was around 2:30 a.m. Netizens believe he followed her home either to apologize and save his reputation, or to make sure she would never be able to tell anyone what he did to her. That brings us to the prime suspect in this whole disappearance, and that is her friend Kim. He was widely considered to be her stalker. Even her father said he's certain it's Kim. He followed Yoon Hee around and was the last person to see her alive. And people who knew them both said he was obsessive and diverted towards her. People believe he went to Jeonbuk University just because she transferred there. Those who knew him also said he kept an observation journal where he recorded her actions and was even said to have collected her hair. Many classmates knew he openly had a crush on her, and they saw it as innocent, unrequited love. But others say she was also close to him because he was her emergency contact. She also wore clothes that he gifted to her, and whenever she had to go home, he'd ask her to watch her beloved dogs. According to Kim, they kissed a few times, but they never had sex. He even said the night that he walked her back home to her apartment after the gathering, they held hands the whole time. But Yoon Hee is gone, and she can't confirm or deny these claims, so take what he says with a grain of salt. He's also suspicious because though he says he walked her back home to her apartment with her consent, no one at the party witnesses them leaving together. There's also no CCTV footage of them walking together. Some think she might have walked home alone and he followed her, walking from afar. But I think the most compelling evidence that indicates Kim in all of this, remember the computer logs. Someone had accessed her computer and deleted chat logs on June 8th. This deletion happened early in the afternoon between 2:15 p.m. and 5:21 p.m. Kim and one other classmate, A, were cleaning her apartment, aka the crime scene, during this time. Though this information wasn't revealed until much later. When asked about it, both Kim and A said they don't remember touching her computer. Also, given the fact that Kim was often asked to watch her dogs, he'd been to her apartment when she wasn't there, so it's reasonable to assume he knew her passcode to her apartment, yet he never went in. Even though police and authorities had to break in to get access, he never gave them the code, he never told them he was there. But it's also fair to assume maybe she changed her code and he didn't know the new one. But there's an even darker reason to suspect someone from Yoon Hee's university where she studies, such as Mr. Moon or Mr. Kim. Aside from her stolen notebook suddenly turning up there, at the Jeonbuk National College of Veterinary Medicine, on a weekly basis, they would collect and incinerate animal carcasses of the animals they had recently dissected that week. Usually the weight of these carcasses was said to be about 40 kilograms or 88 pounds. But right after Yoon Hee went missing, this increased to 110 kilograms or about 242 pounds. Of course, there's always a possibility that they had a larger animal they worked on, like a horse, for example. But it was also the end of the semester and there was no records of a larger animal being dissected or worked on. This is why some authorities believe she was dismembered and incinerated to dispose of her body. More recently, last year on April 16, 2024, her parents Lee Dong-se and Song Hwa-ja held a press conference. Her dad was 87 and her mom was 84. They're still fighting hard to find their youngest daughter. Her father said, quote, "It's been 18 years since my daughter's disappearance. I've done enough. Is it right for me to give up finding my daughter? Is it the job of the police to shamefully refuse to admit their wrongdoings, put the investigation on the back burner, and just fold their arms and reject the request for information disclosure?" Also keep in mind that these quotes are a translation, so if some of the wording seems a little bit off, that's why. On July 18, 2024, the Central Administrative Appeals Commission decided to partially disclose information regarding the request for cancellation of the refusal to disclose information filed by Lee Dong-se, her dad, against the Jeonbuk Provincial Police Agency. Lee requested the disclosure of the investigation records related to 4 friends of Yoon Hee and a Jeonbuk National University veterinarian professor, the 4 friends mentioned earlier, and also Mr. Moon, as well as investigation records of the Cyber Investigation Unit, but only the investigation records of the Cyber Investigation Unit were disclosed. He mentioned the related content at an event held at a cafe in Jeonju on the 18th, criticizing the police for receiving the related materials the day before the meager investigation results of only 35 pages. He also said that he plans to engage in activities to create an Adult Missing Persons Act, also known as the Yoon Hee Act. As of recording this video, Yoon Hee has not been seen for nearly 19 years. There's been recent revived interest in this case, but with no new leads and so much time passing by, people aren't optimistic that her fate will ever be known. Mr. Kim had moved on now, married with kids and running his own vet practice. Yoon Hee's father is still convinced he made his daughter disappear. He took to protesting in front of Kim's practice and was sued for defamation recently. And that, unfortunately, is where this case is right now. I'm really curious what you guys think happened. And I know this isn't the type of content I usually do on my channel, but it's still Korea themed. Let me know if you guys would like to see more videos like this here. You know, normally we do the story times and the K-pop news and travel vlogs and maybe some skincare stuff. But I also find this very interesting because South Korea is often seen as like the safest country to go to. So many people want to go there, move there, live there. They love K-dramas and K-pop, and a lot of people aren't aware of the bad things that also happen in South Korea. And we do talk about that on my channel. We talk about and harassment and stalking in South Korea and how a lot of these crimes aren't very severely punished at all. But this is one of those real live instances where the police really just dropped the ball and we still don't know what happened to this poor girl. It's just a reminder to always keep your guard up, and no matter where you go, be careful. Don't assume that something bad can't happen to you because of where you are. Just always be vigilant. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you did, remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. 안녕.